This is the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast from Advanta IRA, where we show you how to explore investments beyond Wall Street and open your eyes to new options for your portfolio. It's time to take control and give yourself the freedom to choose where you invest your money.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast. My name is Alex Perny, and today on the download, kind of an interesting day to look at different things in the market. It's not necessarily the biggest day as of the recording of this podcast, which is 4/12, on different things actually causing crazy price spikes or anything like that, not unlike Elon Musk taking a 9% stake in Twitter the other week. Although interesting to note that after it was announced that he would be on the board of Twitter, it has now been announced as of this morning that Elon Musk will no longer be on the board of Twitter. This isn't causing much of a change in share price of Twitter or Tesla or SpaceX or anything like that, but just interesting to note. The stocks, however, are in general on the New York Stock Exchange are rallying a bit on the easing of the measure of inflation known as the Consumer Pricing Index for consumers. It is seen in the past 30 days to have rolled back a bit, although we are still seeing inflation at 40-year highs, which is absolutely wild to think about. That the early 80s were the last time is that we saw inflation as bad as it is currently right now. So definitely still something to think about. One measure that was put out by the Bureau of not labor statistics, but the federal government just put out a study that indicated that the consumers in the United States paid $2.8 billion more for goods month over month from last month to this month as they as a measure of consumer pricing indexes, just to show how much inflation is rising, although not as much as it has been in previous months. So definitely something very interesting to take a look at. Another interesting aspect of the federal government today is the Consumer Financial Protection Board chief is suing TransUnion, the large credit reporting bureau, for deceptive business practices. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how this shakes out as consumer credit reporting giant TransUnion as well as Equifax have been hit in recent years with massive data breaches affecting hundreds of millions of Americans and people abroad as well that have social security numbers. So definitely interesting to see how this is going to shake out as to what's going to happen with TransUnion and the consumer credit reporting industry as a whole. Not necessarily something that makes its way into securities market, but definitely interesting financial news to report on. NVIDIA, the large chipset manufacturer that is known for making some of the best graphical processing units or GPUs or graphics cards, is seeing a slowdown in their stock prices and a slight slip as well as the highs from COVID for the demand for these types of graphical processing units has slid in recent months. So the availability of these types of processors going up significantly during COVID, and now retracting a bit now that supply has reached back up with demand. Toyota announcing their first all-electric vehicle. So interesting to see the Japanese auto manufacturer stepping into the realm of all-electric vehicles. Share prices not necessarily reflecting anything major on this news, but certainly something to watch out for, as the Japanese auto manufacturer is known for making some of the highest quality vehicles on the market and selling the best-selling car in the world for the past 15 years or so running with the Toyota Camry. Philadelphia has reinstated indoor mask mandates, so it'll be interesting to see how this COVID restriction is affecting a large major U.S. city. As most of us are aware, Shanghai, a city of over 27 million people, has been on lockdown, full lockdown from the Chinese government for the past several weeks. So interesting to see how some COVID restrictions are starting to eke back into our collective being here, but it'll just be interesting to see how that works out. Now, everyone is still feeling the pain at the pump. However, prices are starting to slide. The Biden administration is trying to get ahead of this with the large traveling expected this summer by authorizing E15 gas. What this is a ethanol blend of gasoline that contains up to 15% ethanol by volume, with the remaining of it being a fossil fuel derivative. Currently, right now, all fuels contain up to 10% ethanol, or known as E10. So the introduction of E15 fuels into the marketplace will be interesting to see just how much that affects gas prices going into the summer travel months. This has been The Download. Today on the what is a Federal Housing Authority Administration loan? The Federal Housing Administration loan is a home mortgage program that is insured by the federal government and issued by a bank or other lender that is approved by the agency. FHA loans require a lower minimum down payment, and many conventional loans and applicants may have lower credit scores than is usually required. The things to take away from what an FHA loan is, and most people think that it's just a lower amount of down payment. It's not just that. The federal government insures payment on FHA loans, so it protects the lenders in the event of default that they cannot collect on that payment. Because they are insured, banks are more willing to loan money to home buyers with relatively low credit scores and little cash to put down on the purchase. First-time home buyers may find that an FHA loan is the most affordable mortgage option. This has been the What Is. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast. This week, we're going to be covering something everyone knows and loves, paying taxes. Whether we want to or not, everyone has to pay the piper when it comes to living in the great United States of America, and taxes are due this coming Monday, April 18th. Normally, the tax filing date falls on the 15th, but this year it is going to be on Monday, April 15th, so we got a few more days for everyone to get in there and get their taxes paid. Now, if you're like me, you probably want to pay as little in taxes as possible and keep most of the money that you make in your pocket. Well, today we're going to review a few ways that some of you can look to make this a reality for yourselves by utilizing IRAs and contributions to these great types of retirement plans in order to help reduce your taxable liability when it comes to paying your taxes. Now, keep in mind that you certainly are able to file an extension, but for the purposes of making contributions to a lot of plans, especially for last year, because you have up until your filing deadline for timely filers to make previous year contributions to IRAs, it is something good to understand because you still have time to open and fund an account to write off traditional IRA contributions for last year. And also, if you're self-employed, have the ability to make previous year contributions to plans such as SEP IRAs and solo 401ks and even simple IRAs in order to help further reduce your taxable burden. Now, it's important to understand that if you want to make these kind of contributions and you are filing timely, meaning on April 18th, you do need to have the plans open and funded, or at least the funds postmarked, meaning that you actually walked into an old post office and had them put a postmark on it by the filing deadline in order to get these things done. Sometimes we can receive things afterwards, so long as that we have the postmark indicated beforehand. Now, the important types of plans to understand that I'm going to kind of go over today in the podcast are the main ones that a lot of people look to that have deductible contributions. So think of your traditional IRA. This is an account that anyone can open so long as you have a Social Security number and you are earning wages that are taxable in the United States. Things like SEP IRAs, which are for self-employed or small business owners. We have things like solo 401ks, health savings accounts, and education savings accounts that can all be funded in order to help drive down the amount of money that you're going to potentially owe when it comes time to pay and file your taxes. So the easy low-hanging fruit to look at when it comes to making deductible contributions to help reduce your taxes are traditional IRAs. These are fantastic plans for allowing you to write off the money that you contribute into one of these plans. Now, if you are a higher wage earner or if you're self-employed, these may not necessarily apply to you, but especially for most of you out there that might be listening to this, the traditional IRA is going to offer you a great option for helping you contribute money into it. So keep your own money. It's in an account that you own while not paying as much in taxes. So anyone with earned income is eligible to contribute to a traditional IRA. However, your deductibility may be limited based on your total annual income. So if you're making, and as a general rule of thumb, less than 100 grand a year, you can typically write off the entirety of your traditional IRA contribution. The benefits of using a traditional IRA are a tax deduction, lowering your current tax bill, tax deferred growth, so meaning that you can defer the growth on any of the contributions that you make in there. So if you contribute money and you have earnings, none of those earnings are taxed at the time of realization. They're only taxed when you take the money out in retirement. And then you also have the ability to supercharge these plans by utilizing rollovers from other employers type plans. Now, again, these are going to be really great for individuals that are looking to reduce their taxable income. You do have the option of utilizing a Roth IRA. However, Roth IRAs, you do not get a tax write-off for actually contributing money in there. So it's important to understand that if you want to make a deductible contribution, the traditional IRA is the route to go. But if you're not so much concerned with the deduction and maybe you just want to put in more money into a retirement plan, you can utilize a Roth IRA that you've established and funded by April 15th against your contribution limits for 2021. Now, your contribution limits for a traditional and Roth IRA are exactly the same, and they are a combined limit. So if you want to contribute to a traditional IRA and some to a Roth, keep in mind that the total between the two cannot exceed $6,000 for 2021. However, if you're over the age of 50, you get a $1,000 kicker that you can contribute in there as well. So you get a little bit of a catch up. So the government throws you a little bit of a bone with that one, giving you an additional $1,000 if you are over the age of 50. So that primarily covers your Roth and traditional IRAs. Keep in mind that you do have the ability to open and fund these up until your filing deadline plus any extensions. Now, if you are not a working individual, so let's say one spouse in the house or one individual in the household, if you're married, works, the other spouse can also contribute to their IRA in what's known as a spousal IRA contribution. So if you're especially looking to maximize a household deduction, if you are filing a joint tax return, you can contribute up to $12,000 or $14,000 depending on the age of the individuals in the household to a traditional IRA per year. So you can contribute that for last year to write off of your taxes for your combined joint household return that you're going to be filing. Just keeping in mind that you have to be filing as a married couple in order to take advantage of that spousal IRA contribution if one of the two of you isn't working. Now, if you didn't have any earned income in 2021, unfortunately, you can't contribute to a traditional IRA to help reduce your taxes, or a Roth IRA for that matter as well. You need to make sure that you have qualifying Social Security wages, meaning that if you have W-2 income, that's going to qualify, or if you're self-employed and you have FICA and FUTA qualifying income, so subject to self-employment tax, that can be used to qualify your contributions as well to these types of plans. So just because maybe you made money in 2021, if that was only dividend income or investment income, long or short-term capital gains, things like that cannot be used to qualify contributions for these types of plans. Now that goes for Roth or traditional, not just either or. So it's important to understand the type of income that you have is going to directly reflect what type of contributions you can make, if any, to these types of plans. And keep in mind, for traditional and Roth IRAs, you have up until your filing deadline you have up until your timely filing deadline, not including extensions. So while you certainly are able to file an extension, if you need more time, hey, take advantage of it. But you aren't able to then in turn make a previous year contribution to a retirement plan. You're going to lose that. It's going to go poof after April 18th. So if you are intending to file timely and maybe just were thinking about filing an extension, you will lose some ability to mitigate your taxes if you do put that off a little bit later. Now, if you're a self-employed individual, you have some additional options that I want to kind of go over as well. So just to kind of recap, if you're a individual who works a 9-to-5 job or a household of just 9-to-5 wage earners, the traditional or Roth IRA is really what you're going to look at in order to contribute for last year in order to help reduce your taxes or just be able to fund a retirement plan. Now, if you're self-employed, you have a few different options. So let's say you're Jane or John Smith that is selling widgets on eBay, let's say. So you have this business, you're creating business income, and let's say you had a pretty decent year and you made $100,000. So yeah, if you want to try to make sure that you're not paying as much taxes as possible with that, you have some different options. The two that I'm going to cover for you today are the SEP IRA and the solo 401k. These are two great options for people. Now, the SEP IRA think about a supercharged traditional IRA. Now, this one does have the added benefit that you can make the contribution for last year up until your filing date plus extensions because it is a business plan. However, if you are filing your taxes timely and you are just flowing all of the income you made last year as a self-employed individual to yourself and filing on the 18th, you have to make the SEP contribution by the 18th as well in order to write off that income. So the way a SEP IRA works is that on top of your traditional IRA contribution, you also have a SEP IRA contribution. Now, the SEP IRA contribution is up to 25% of your total revenues that you made from your self-employed business activity, not to exceed $58,000 per year for 2021. Now that's going to go up for this year. So for wages earned in 2022, you can contribute up to $61,000 into that, into those kinds of plans. And SEP IRAs are always deductible. So for you self-employed people out there, SEP IRAs are a great way just to easily be able to capture some tax savings. Now, some of the rules for that is that the self-employed individuals calculate the contribution less 1/2 of the self-employment tax. Contributions don't have to be made year to year, and contribution must be made by the filing date. So the SEP contributions, if you're going to file timely on April 18th, you have to make that SEP contribution for last year, open and fund that account for last year by the 18th. Now, if you file an extension, you only have to make that first $6,000 or $7,000 traditional contribution by the filing deadline. The other chunk of it, the 25% of your revenues, can be made up until your extended filing deadline if you filed for an extension. So good thing to keep in mind. And the big thing to understand with this is that even though with a SEP IRA and a solo 401k, you have the ability to file plus the extended deadline, if you are going to file all the taxes for that business activity at the timely deadline of April 18th, you have to do the contributions for last year by that date. You can't then in turn just file an amended filing later on this year and then recapture that. So just keep in mind that for the business plans, it's to your filing deadline plus extensions. But if you file early, you got to make that contribution early. So a lot of calculations that might need to be made pretty quickly. Now, the solo 401k is a little bit more complex, but it does offer a greater degree of flexibility. So for those of you that maybe don't necessarily need to capture all of the deductibility aspects of contributing to a retirement plan and maybe want to have some after-tax contributions for Roth growth, the solo 401k is really the way to go for you. The nice thing about a solo 401k is it lets you create either a hybrid of pre and post-tax money, so deductible and non-deductible, all deductible or all Roth. You can really play with these a whole lot to kind of get to where you need to go. Now, the solo 401k is nice in that if you're a self-employed individual, you can contribute $19,500 of your income to the plan per year. So you can just write off your income, $19,500 right there. Now, if you're over the age of 50, you get an additional $6,000 of additional compensation deferral into that plan, meaning that you can just write off and contribute $25,500 of your compensation to the plan per year. Now, unfortunately for this part, you did need to do that as a payroll deferral, and the best practice is to do that by the end of January. So unfortunately, you might have missed out on the front half, but the back half, which is what people like to call profit sharing portion, is you can contribute up to 25% of the net income of the business activity. And if you're passing all the business income to yourself personally as compensation, then you still can contribute up to 25% of that net compensation that you have, up to $38,000. Now that $38,000, you can make the deductible contribution up until your filing deadline plus extensions. Again, if you're filing on the 18th, you need to look at the solo 401k for making that contribution. And due to some recent legislative changes, you are able to open up a retirement plan such as a solo 401k and make a previous year contribution after December 31st. So you still are able to open this plan and contribute for last year, even if you haven't done so yet. So really good to understand. The government actually did some good stuff for us with the legislative changes back 2 years ago with what was called the Secure Act, and allowing for these plans to be opened and contributed to a little bit later on. Now, a solo 401k is a little bit more restrictive than a SEP IRA because it cannot cover businesses with rank and file employees. It can only cover business owners, spouses, and other equitable owners of the business. If you have a bookkeeper that works over 500 hours a year for you over 3 years, or anyone that works over 1,000 hours per year for you in one given year, you are going to have create a different type of plan, and that's all for another day. Now, some of the advantages of the solo 401k, against things like a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA are higher funding limits. You can defer a larger amount of your earned income, and you can do that either pre or post tax. You have funding flexibility from year to year. You also have the ability to take tax-free loans from these plans, which is something I'm not going to get into today, but wow, that's awesome that you can take a personal loan to use for personal issues that you may have, pay off credit card debt, improve your house, whatever you need to do. You can take a loan against these. Unlike SEP IRAs, Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, you got some really cool flexibility there. And also, unlike the SEP IRA, you do have the ability to make this a Roth option, meaning that the contributions can be made after tax to a solo 401k. So to recap for what everyone needs to know today, I'll try to keep it a little bit short and sweet. I know it's a very hectic time of year for a lot of people with everything going on. You got taxes coming up. You need to make the decision. The easy way to think about it is that if you want a deductibility of a contribution, you're probably going to want to go with the traditional IRA. It's going to offer you the ability to write off that against your taxes, reduce your total taxable income. And you can still make that contribution for last year by your filing deadline. So by Monday, April 18th, you can still open, even if you've never had an IRA before, open a traditional, make a contribution for last year and write that off. You can also do the same thing for a Roth IRA, but it's not going to offer you the ability to write off anything against your taxes. For those of you that are self-employed, you can open up a SEP IRA and defer 25% of your income if you're filing timely. So up to $58,000 that you can plug into one of those plans and make a large tax deduction for yourself. Now, you don't have to max it out. If you didn't make enough money to max out that contribution, don't worry. You can still contribute 25% of whatever you make. It's just the max is $58,000. And then with a solo 401k, the nice part is that if you're the only one that's operating the business, you have the ability to potentially contribute more money while making less money. So the way that works is instead of a SEP IRA being based on a percentage of total income to base your contribution on, the solo 401k, if you're under 50, allows you just to plug in $19,500 out of your compensation per year or anything up to or below that. And then an additional $6,000 if you're over the age of 50 and a half. So a lot of flexibility there. Whereas, an easy example, if you made, let's say, $20,000 in a given year as a self-employed individual, a SEP contribution is only going to be a contribution max of $5,000, as opposed to a 401k could be anywhere up to almost $19,000 out of that 20 that you could contribute to that plan. So the flexibility, the amount of deductibility are all things that you need to kind of look at. Give us a call here at Advanta IRA. I am always happy to help people work through this stuff, and it's not too late to make these contributions and help reduce your taxes. I hope everyone found this useful. Everyone, I wish you the best of luck in not only your investing, but also tax season. I know it can be a very stressful time of year for everyone. If there's anything that we can do here at Advanta IRA to make it a little bit easier on us, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Reach out to us at advantaira.com. We're more than happy to take care of you. My name is Alex Perny, and this has been another edition of the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast. Tune in next week for more investing tips and strategies.
Want to hear more episodes of the Alternative Investing Advantage? Search podcast at advantaira.com and subscribe.